Welcome to the Kings Beat podcast. I am James Ham, your Kings insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. Joining me, Fox 40's Sean Cunningham. What's going on, Sean?
A lot, man. Just so much going on in a time where this should be like the deadest period of the year when it comes to sports. But I come back from Vegas and it just seems like everything is going on work-wise, life-wise. I'm actually very thrilled to be joined by you gentlemen here at the close to midnight hour as we record this. I love the energy of these nighttime podcasts.
The nighttime pods. Okay, and of course, Brenden Nunes is joining us from the Kings Pulse podcast and the Kings Herald. What's going on, Brenden?
Yeah, up late past my bedtime, but Mom said I could sneak this pod in, so I'm here and happy to do it. Educating myself on Don Corleone before this.
All right,
So,
all right.
Yeah.
He is watching The Godfather. We've got Brenden watching The Godfather, which is spectacular. I mean, that's kind of where everyone needs to start. Like, if you're going to get into, like, mobster flicks, gangster flicks, that kind of stuff, you need to start with The Godfather. It's like the baseline, and then you build off of there. So once you get done, we have other, like, you can watch Casino, you can watch Goodfellas, yeah. You can go back and binge watch The Sopranos, which is one of the greatest TV shows in the history of television.
Phenomenal.
I'm pretty sure I've seen Goodfellas and Heat, but like once, and it's been long enough that it wouldn't hurt to rewatch. And so far, Godfather's good. I think I'm like an hour and a half through. It is a very long movie, fellas. But I'm like an hour and a half through.
You're going to finish
I'm
tonight?
going to finish this tonight. Yeah.
Okay.
That's funny. During the my COVID weekend, when I was my first weekend, I binge watched all of the Lord of the Rings and all of The Hobbit, and they're all extended versions, which are all like 3.5 hours long. So I don't want to hear it that it's too long, Brenden.
That's fair enough. I was just watching a D.B. Cooper documentary on Netflix that had me pretty intrigued. So I guess I've been watching more shows or TV and shows than usual recently. After Vegas, I kind of relaxed a little bit these last couple days.
Yeah, if we were going live, DB would be here in the chat talking trash to Sean, making him feel awkward. So how is that DB Cooper documentary? Because I've heard about it, but, I don't know.
Yeah, it's okay. It seems a little stretched out. I think there's like 8 episodes. There probably could be 3. And I think that it would be fine content. But overall, I think it's intriguing. First 2 episodes are really good. After that, it might fall off a little bit. But I like those type of shows.
That's the standard Netflix formula. They take what should be like a 2-hour documentary and they make it into like 8 episodes where they throw out some cockamamie scheme of what could be happening or not. Okay. Anyway, all right. Let's get to the basketball. Before we do that, if you're watching on YouTube, give us a thumbs up. And subscribe to the show. If you're new to the show, that's awesome. Welcome in. Again, this is a Kings Beat. If you're not new to the show and still aren't subscribing, then that's on you, and we're going to be pissed at you. So
Make better choices.
Yeah, make better life
what's wrong
choices.
with you guys?
Yeah.
We see the percentages. Subscribe, damn it.
Subscribe. We know how many people watch this thing versus how many people are subscribed. No, we're super close to 2,000 subscriptions, so those are benchmarks that we like to hit quickly and then move on from there. We've been growing like crazy, so thank you for all of that. We're still working on a Kings Beat virtual happy hour guest. I'm hoping for next week.
Next week.
Yeah, next week. I don't know. Can you do next week? I think
Sure.
like maybe we do something like the 26th or the 28th next week. So yeah, we got to figure that one out. But we'll get guests in here and we'll fire up the Kings Beat virtual happy hour. And then outside of that, we're entering the dog days, and Sean was talking about it a little bit where it's the dog days, but it's still busy. I think the biggest thing is we'll just start here with Tuesday overreactions. Sean's favorite part of the show.
We're going to call Keegan Murray like a Hall of Famer all of a sudden? Is that going to be like the
He's an MVP.
overreaction?
Man, I saw our friend Mark Spears go on
Yeah.
the 4-letter network and just start like going crazy, like saying that the Kings are going to make the playoffs. Like, what are we talking about here?
Sir.
Keegan Murray is an MVP. he's the surefire rookie of the year. I think it's an interesting discussion, though.
Is it?
One of the things that Spears said that I think stood out to me is that he believes that of the rookies, this rookie class, that the Kings will win more games than every other team, and that should make it easier for Keegan Murray to win the Rookie of the Year. And to be honest with you, I kind of agree with him. They're going to be better than Houston. They should be better than Detroit. They should be better than OKC. They should be better than Orlando. They should be better than Indiana. If the draft in year one goes according to Hoyle, then Keegan Murray does have a really good shot here if winning is factored in.
This is so weird to hear.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's so preliminary and so weird to have that discussion. And honestly, if he wins the MVP, if he wins the Rookie of the Year, great. That doesn't mean you had a great year. I mean, he just ended up looking like one of the better rookies of the class, and that's fine. But maybe I'm just the stick in the mud, for lack of a better term, because I don't put a lot of stock into what I saw in Summer League, and I also wasn't surprised by many things that we witnessed in Summer League, to the point of that's not taking away from what Keegan Murray did. Certainly he would have been my pick for the MVP award. Sure, that's great. It's not indicative of what we should come to expect in the regular season, because those aren't NBA games and he's not playing with NBA players. He played very well as a number 4 pick, but he was picked number 4 for a reason, and you knew what he could do. You knew what type of skill set that he had. You knew he's capable of putting up numbers and grabbing rebounds and playing at a high level. So no, I wasn't really surprised by what he did. And I know we kind of talked about that. There are things about his game that were impressive, to be sure. I mean, we can go on and on and on about that, but I sometimes feel like people come out of Summer League with these really ideas of grandeur and expectations that be based off of a handful of games that they witnessed in Las Vegas in the summertime, where he's playing with a bunch of people that aren't NBA people. And I just say, if you're excited, that's great. To say he's the best rookie of the rookie class, pump the brakes. He is so far. Banchero played 2 games? Jaden Ivey played 2 games? I think it was. He had an ankle issue.
Game and a half. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, great. That's awesome if someone play here's an idea, not to take away from what Davion Mitchell did last year. I think Davion Mitchell had a hell of a rookie season. He didn't finish in the top rookie class. He didn't win Rookie of the Year, and yet he was a co-MVP coming out of Summer League, and they won the freaking championship. So that's just an example of saying, that doesn't mean you're destined for greatness to be the top rookie in the class or even in this year. But I do see the point in being, hey, we all figured that Keegan would be among the top rookies, if not the top rookie, when it comes to playing in the NBA right away and fitting in right away. So if this helps validate that decision or those opinions, okay.
Sean's a buzzkill.
I'm a stick in the mud, right? I know, man.
Yeah, Sean's a buzzkill here. Keegan Murray just won his first MVP of many. He's the savior in Sacramento.
MVP.
Yeah, this is as good as it gets. I was stupid and wrong for everything that I said about Keegan Murray, and Jaden Ivey is just not that guy. Clearly, Keegan is going to solve all the problems from day one. I don't know how you can conclude anything else, and I have 3 months to ride with this, and there's no other basketball to tell me any different. I think that, like Sean said, he kind of put up numbers as expected in Summer League. This is what we saw him do at Iowa. I think it was very easy to see how that translates alongside Fox and Sabonis, a lot of dribble handoffs and more cuts backdoor than he actually got a pass in response for. I think that Sabonis and De'Aaron and those guys will reward him for those good cuts even more often. I think he's going to be solid in transition. I think he's going to be a work in progress defensively, especially if they're running him at the 3. I think that there's going to be some growing pains there. But in my mind, I think the Rookie of the Year race kind of comes down to, if it goes as expected, Paolo Banchero and Keegan Murray. And I think that it probably already was going to be that. And in my mind, the end of the year or when we start talking about that voting, it comes down to the total numbers, counting stats that Paulo's putting up compared to less points per game and just total raw numbers from Keegan, but a better efficiency. And I feel like more often than not, if there's a gap, say Paulo's putting up 18, 5, and 4, and then you're getting 12, 3, and 1.5 from Keegan, but he's 10% more efficient. Like, I think that's more likely than not in my mind. If there's a conversation with Keegan Murray in the Rookie of the Year race, that it kind of comes down to that between him and Paulo.
That's a good question. What if you were going to put his stats? You were just going to write down his stats and say, this is kind of what I predict for him in his rookie season. Because I'm with you. I think it, like, on draft night, it was pretty clear that the two most, like, mature and ready to play in the NBA players were Paolo Banchero and Keegan Murray. And it hasn't changed at all. I think Chet's still going to be really intriguing. I think Jabari Smith is further away than what we thought he might be after watching him play. He'll look different with better players. But, like, if you had to say, okay, I think this is who Keegan will be in year one, what would be your ballpark figures?
In terms of averages?
Yeah. Like, what do you think? Like, I mean, I think, like, a reasonable average, I'd say, like, 14.5 points, 6.5 rebounds, steal,
Wow.
maybe 1.4 assists, shoots 47% from the field, and maybe 38% from three.
Those are pretty. I don't know. Those are pretty
That's higher.
pretty
than
solid
you think?
numbers. Obviously, yeah, it might be a little bit higher. I also just wonder. Again, I always just caution, and I got accused of being political.
What should his numbers be, Sean?
No, can't do that. Can't do that. I will say, like, I just don't know what the team looks like yet, and I think if we have a good indication of what they're going to look like, but this team could look a little bit different, and I'm interested to see whether or not, like, I don't think it matters if he starts or not, but I am interested to see how that dynamic plays out. I think no matter how it plays out in terms of starting or not starting, I want to see Keegan Murray playing 25 minutes a game at minimum. Like, that has to be the average at minimum. Because I just don't think you're going to be.
I think he's going to
enough.
play like 28. Like, that's
Yeah.
where I would put him, like 27 to like 31. There's a possibility he could play 30 minutes tonight.
Yeah, and the scoring part of it is intriguing, but I also wonder it might take him a little bit to find that footing, to kind of find his place with the team. He's going to be encouraged, I think, to score, but there might be a little sense of earn it. And I could see him making those type of numbers, James. I really could, but I don't want to put an expectation out there and then see it fall flat and just be like, well, these were the expectations that we had. And I think, again, as the expectations that maybe you have it on July 19th could be different than what might transpire at the start of training camp or maybe even a week into training camp. So that's just the only thing I would caution. I don't know if I could really pinpoint what a success would look like in terms of statistics for him. For me, the biggest statistic of all is just you better be averaging 25 minutes a game for your rookie season and then take it from there. And I think regardless of success or failure in the win-loss record, like, it probably should be closer to 30 by the time the season ends.
Yeah, I think if I had to give my prediction for numbers, I think that it's something along the lines of 12, 13 points, about 5 boards, and then an assist and a half. And I think somewhere around 45% from the field and 38% from three. Like, it's interesting to me to see how much they try to feature him, at least here and there in the offense, or if he's just going to be a completely complementary piece. My guess would be the latter, but, like, is there moments where it's like, oh, tonight is a night we feel like we can give him a couple post-up touches in a game, or we want to run this action for him where he's coming off a pin down and he's one of the primary options. Like, I think obviously if they're running through him a little bit more, those efficiency numbers could go down, but in general, he's a very efficient player, and in my mind, he's just running kind of complementary second side stuff off of Fox and Sabonis. So I think it's a situation where like counting stats aren't going to be phenomenal, but I think percentages, specifically 3-point percentage, should be pretty solid.
Yeah, I think he's going to get opportunity. I don't think like 14.5 points. I don't think that's outlandish. I mean, De'Aaron averaged 12 as a rookie and was green and raw. Davion last season averaged 11. Tyreese Halliburton averaged right around 12 points a game. I think he comes into the league and should have a role that's bigger than what some of those guys had in year one, and an opportunity. And
he factors to be a better scorer than any of those guys in the rookie year, don't you think? Like just based off his skill set.
Yeah, I mean, he walks in and he's a perfect fit on this team. I mean, they're going to find him in the corner, and if he, if he wants to pull a Harrison Barnes and not shoot enough, then sure, his numbers won't be where I think they'll be. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I think he's going to be featured a lot. I think the Kings want him to win Rookie of the Year. I think it's something that will be pretty high on their list of things that they want. They want to prove that this was a great pick. And just because you win Rookie of the Year doesn't mean anything. I mean, Mike Miller won Rookie of the Year. Michael Carter-Williams won Rookie of the Year.
Tyreek.
And then we had, what's that?
Tyreek Evans.
Yeah, Tyreek Evans. But Tyreek definitely deserved it. I mean, his stats were huge, but at the same time, like I don't think it really matters. The Rookie of the Year becomes more circumstantial than anything else. And we can go back and Malcolm Brogdon won Rookie of the Year as a second-round pick. So there will be someone else who's really good out of this draft class that we're not thinking of right now who will have a shot. But I like what Murray brings to the table, and I think he's going to be really like ready to play in year one. I think year two, he can probably get up to like 16.5 points per game and closer to 7.5 rebounds and be more functional. But year one, I still think there's going to be a ton of opportunity just because Sabonis and Fox draw a ton of attention, and he's going to get wide open looks.
Yeah, I can see that. And, I just, again, wonder what the team looks like. I wonder if they feel they'll have to make a move to bring in a more established 4, maybe a better established 3. Obviously you have some point guard help that you need to address. But yeah, there's some question marks there to be sure. And a lot of summer left, as I like to keep saying, because I really feel like Monty McNair might as well have worn a T-shirt that said, "I'm not done. We're not done," at that press conference in Vegas when he was introducing Malik Monk and Kevin Huerter, because he was beating that drum, man. He was just beating that drum. We're not done. And I think I walked up and said hello to him afterwards. He's like, "We're not done." Like, yeah, that's how triggered he was.
We're not done. He's got it tattooed somewhere.
Right.
It's part of his thorough, comprehensive and process-driven approach is to tell Sean that he's not done every time he sees him. We're not done. Brenden, what do you think? I mean, is this a legitimate Rookie of the Year candidate? I mean, when you look at him, you're like, okay, I mean, Summer League doesn't mean much, but do you feel comfortable saying, yeah, I'm down with this? This is a guy who's going to battle for Rookie of the Year.
Totally. I think that Keegan's absolutely going to be in that conversation. He's a guy that comes into the NBA with an NBA-ready game. Like, I think one of the things that stood out during his time at Iowa, and then you saw it translate at Summer League as well, is just like he already is playing at his own pace. It may have been one of you two that said this on a previous spot, but it's like the game has already slowed down for him, when typically that would just take a little bit more time. So I think because of the fact that he's coming into the NBA with a little bit more of a obvious skill set and at least how it will translate in the immediate, and weirdly being in a role that fits him really well. Like, it's not very often that you can look at a Sacramento top lottery pick and be like, man, they're in a really good situation for the sake of their own growth and immediate development as well. And I think that you can say that for Keegan.
Now, Sean, go ahead.
And I agree. No, I agree. But I also think, like, it didn't take Summer League to feel that way. I felt like whoever drafted Keegan Murray, he'd be in the running for Rookie of the Year just based off of his readiness and what he can bring to a team. Doesn't make him a star, but I think it bodes well for whoever was to draft him. And obviously with the Kings drafting him and addressing a need right out of the gate, it's impossible to not think of the guy as a contender for Rookie of the Year. So I get it, but it just doesn't. I just want to caution people because it doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean anything other than the fact that you expect him to be a productive player, and there should be some expectations of that. But as James pointed out a minute ago, there's guys who've won Rookie of the Year that don't really become that star player that maybe you think they might have when they win the award. So I already see some pretty crazy things. I know you guys have seen it too. I'm thrilled that fans have something to be excited about, but that's why you need the responsibility of two of the three of us, no, probably all three of us, to sit there and go, hey guys, calm down.
We didn't start any Twitter beefs with Detroit like some of these other people.
Yeah, what was that about, man? What happened?
I missed it. I was like 2 hours late.
James Edward the third made some off-the-cuff comment about Sacramento being like the second worst NBA city to go visit as a beat writer. Which
I could see that.
Like, he lives in one of them. Like, so.
Well, and how long has he been there, by the way?
He hasn't been there that long.
That's what I'm saying. You're coming into Sacramento during a pandemic, my guy. Like, that's a little tough.
That's a little tough, and I don't remember anyone, like, the Bay Area contingency comes, like, to Sacramento really hard for big games, right? Mm-hmm. So we start getting, Spears and Amick and, I don't know who else, but we do get a lot of guys from the Bay Area that are showing up when there's good games. I hate to tell him this, but no one is showing up to watch a Detroit Pistons Sacramento Kings game on a Wednesday night. Nobody cares. Like, the Kings fans don't even want to see that, even though Cade Cunningham could play. So I don't think anyone showed him around town. I don't know him. I think he's been in Sac a couple of times, but I don't know him, and I don't think you guys know him like that personal. Like, he's not someone that I like sit there and hang out with and have long conversations with. But like, there are a lot of beat writers that come through Sacramento who don't feel that way. Like, I've gone out to lunch and to dinner with tons of beat writers who love Sacramento, and
right.
I've gone out with the Cleveland contingency where they're like, hey, we got to try this like Southern fried chicken place that's in downtown. I don't know if it was the Porch or something. Like, all of a sudden we're sitting there having lunch and having like food in Sacramento that I've never had. I'm like, hey, check this out. This is kind of cool. But like, there is a little bit of a nightlife, and there's certainly plenty of good restaurants and stuff. And he said something, and Sacramento Kings fans like jumped on him. And now Kings fans, they're like, they got their little list. It's like,
yeah,
Spencer Hawes, Jason Terry.
Oh yeah,
dude from Detroit.
Is it James Johnson?
Oh, James Johnson's on there.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Look, like, I get it, but it's also like, it's a dude's opinion, man, based off his experiences. Maybe he's just had a really shitty time when he comes to Sacramento. In fact, James, I don't know if it was this year might have been the first year, because I don't think when Detroit came through the year before, there was even any traveling media with Detroit. Right?
Yeah, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. And again, my point is that, like, if he knows somebody in the league, if he knows other reporters, typically we like how many times have I gone out with the Utah contingency? Like, all of their beat writers, they're awesome. How many times have we gone out with BT from LA, or right. Dan Wojcicki, or like, we're all reasonably friendly, especially if we all go to shoot around. Then it's like, hey, where are we all going afterwards? So I just don't think that he's come through town with somebody that, like, I think like Marcus Thompson is a friend of his. If Marcus Thompson would have been here in Sacramento, he would have taken him out to a couple of spots. Because I can tell you this, that dude brought his wife and daughter to games for years in Sacramento. So yes, they like it here. They found the environment fun and appealing. So I just thought it was weird to see the Kings kind of get thrown under the bus. But then he also listed San Antonio as one of his worst places to go. And it's like, man, the Riverwalk is bomb. The Alamo's right there. Like, maybe it's just a taste thing. Maybe he's looking for something specific that he just can't find in a city like Sacramento or
it's a dude's
San Antonio.
opinion too. I thought it was hilarious because I was seeing some stuff, just the vitriol of people who can't. They can't.
I love
take,
Kings fans. I do.
Yeah, man. There's like
burn it down.
Right, like how dare you say anything negative about this town, and and they just get in their feelings. Look, man, I'm from here. I'm born and raised. I love Sacramento, and I think it's funny when anytime I think I've told you guys this in previous podcasts, going to something like the NBA Finals or even Summer League or a league event, be it for NBA, more so for NBA because you have an NBA team here, I might as well wear this big sign over my head that just says Sacramento. And everybody, my name might as well be just Sacramento. And then all these people are like walking up, it's like, hey man, what are you doing here? There's no Kings here. There's no, and it's always that, or they'll come up to me like, man, what is up with the Kings? Like, because it's just not good. And I'm the one that's got to be like, you don't see me out here trying to defend them. Like, I'm just going to be like, your guess is, you're shaking your head much like I do every day. So, hopefully that changes soon, but it is funny. And, it's fun to see the way fans take innocent, what's meant to be just his own personal experience on a social media platform and him getting some feedback from it. So good for them.
I think one of my favorite tweets I've seen was there's a main character on Twitter every day, and the goal is to never be it. And I think that James managed to be the main character the other day. James Edwards, that is.
Oh, okay. James Edwards.
Yeah. And he's not allowed back in the city of Sacramento, obviously.
Oh,
yeah.
No, I actually really like the work that James does.
Hey, MFer, it's our dumpster fire. Don't you kick the side of our dumpster fire.
Good Lord.
Yeah. I love it.
I think you know what? I'm trying to remember. I don't think I know James very well. I've been in his company before, but
I think I've met him. I think I've met him once or twice, but I don't know him very well. Yeah. There are a lot of reporters that I know, reasonably well around the league. And, when they come into town, it's like, hey, what's going on? We have good conversations. Brendan's been at the table where, the whole table at dinner is 8 beat writers from around the area, and hey, this is cool. Or from visiting teams in Sacramento, and we're we're thick as thieves as writers, so and reporters. We all just hang out together when guys are in town.
Yeah, man. I was just looking at him too. I was like, he's not actually the one I was thinking of. So he's.
Hey, you don't even know.
Apologies to James.
I don't even know who that guy is. I mean, seriously, he can't have been the beat writer for more than
No, he's got to be new to this.
3 or 4 seasons at the most, and 2 of those were pandemic seasons. How do you make a judgment on some of these cities when, I don't know. Whatever. Okay, so. Let's get to something. We touched on this.
Amused.
Yeah, we touched on this last time that we had a pod, but we kind of breezed over it, and then Damian pulled it out, and we talked about it today on the show a little bit because Sean joined us. I've been working all week on ESPN 1320, which is why we're doing the late podcast tonight. But Damian brought something back to the conversation. And it was that Sean had made the bold statement that there could be a starting lineup that included De'Aaron Fox, Kevin Huerter, Harrison Barnes, Richaun Holmes, and Domantas Sabonis. And I think both Brenden and I just kind of blew Sean off like he's a crazy ass. And well, whatever, Sean. That ain't going to happen. Keegan Murray's starting at the 4. What the hell is Sean talking about? But, am I wrong there, Brenden? Is that what your first thought was? Man, Sean must have had a drink.
Yeah, that might have been. He was having a drink that day, so very, very accurate. Yeah,
that's true. That's true. And people complain that you were in a bar, even though you did make time while you were in Las Vegas to come on a podcast, just so you know.
If you're going to sit at a bar, you have to order a drink, and they wouldn't let me get a non-alcoholic beverage. Sorry.
It wasn't that. The beer wasn't the problem. I mean, there was some feedback, but I think feedback, the noise, ambient noise is good. To be, we've done podcasts, and every once in a while someone complains because we're in the Yard House. And it's look, man, this is where we are. We're trying to get a pod for you people to help you out, to get you as much Kings news as possible and to entertain you. Sometimes
Does this sound too pompous? Does this sound too pompous as if I like to say, we do our podcast for us. Like it's I hope people enjoy it. That's not to say we don't do it for people, but like at the end of the day, like like I do this because I enjoy it. You know what I mean? Like I enjoy talking to you guys and seeing different opinions, and if people find it entertaining or they want to listen to it every single day, that's great. But then when you hear some comments or whatever, which I'm always amused by, positive or negative, I appreciate them. I think they're great. I think they're food for thought, but like most of them just make me kind of laugh, and just the thought and detail that goes into a lot of the comments and the thinking about what we plot out to do when we do this podcast almost gives us too much credit. You know what I mean? Like we're just hey man, let's just start talking and doing this, right? Like
our rundown is like literally like 40 seconds. I have some notes, but they're like I can't even see them tonight because it's dark and like whatever.
How many times James is like, hey, why don't we talk about this? Maybe we'll hit on this, and one of us just goes, dude, can we just fucking do this right now? Can we just go?
Let's just go. We got to get this thing going. Yeah. Right. So anyway, to get back to the point.
To get
back to
I said what I said, Richaun Holmes. Yeah, like it's possible. I'm not saying I would bet on it, but it's not something I just, had this thought bubble and said, hey, what if? I think it's entirely possible based on if this roster remains as is to start the season. I think you're going to see moments of that, and I think a lot of it will be to start it a certain way because usually Domantas Sabonis comes off the floor after about, 4 or 5 minutes, James? I think it's kind of what we saw, and then it's a way to stagger both centers, but it's also a way to show that you're bringing your rookie along. You don't have to finish with that lineup. I think you're showing your veterans that you are veterans, and yes, you have earned some of these things, and depending on how training camp shakes out, like it's entirely possible. Again, I don't know that I'd bet on it, but it's not something I just like hashed up on my own. In fact, it's based off conversations that we've had. And again, we're so far away, where I didn't even bring up the method of conversation and the people I talked to. Like it's like, how do you envision maybe roles going forward? How do you envision what this could look like? I don't think anyone's really starting on or talking about starters necessarily, but it's like, what could a rotation look like? What could a bulk minute rotation look like? Meaning which rotation could get the most bang for your buck and lead the rotation minutes of the five. So it's certainly a possibility. Anybody that reads into that too much just has to remember that it's July 19th. We're still far away, but yeah, it's still very, very possible that could be a situation that presents itself for Mike Brown and his staff.
I'm watching Brenden. I just want him to yell, "Erroneous! Erroneous!" Like, Go ahead, Brenden.
He just won an MVP. How can you not? He has to be in the starting lineup. Like
he is the MVP.
I don't know what this whole veteran who deserves more. MVP. Yeah, this literally as good as it gets. Like,
this is why the Kings fans are such a freaking tortured fan base, man. Because of stuff like that.
Yeah, it's like catnip.
I would understand trying Holmes and Sabonis here and there. I think that it's very reasonable to look at your lineup and say that those are two of your 5 best guys. And sometimes you just need to get your 5 best players out there and see if it can work. Like maybe there is progress that I'm supposed to believe in more than I do with the whole lethal shooter and Sabonis shooting thing. Can Richaun Holmes have a corner push shot? Can one of those guys have a little bit of something from range? Even Sabonis just hitting an elbow jumper more often, and obviously Richaun is really consistent from like the nail and elbow sort of area. Like I can see scenarios where it works. My hesitance would come if they were thinking that like relying on that lineup. I don't mind trying it, but in my mind, like if that's like, oh, this is one of our primary lineups, then I'm concerned because I just don't think that the spacing is phenomenal. And clearly spacing and shooting was something that was highly prioritized. We heard about it nonstop. And then to get Keegan Murray, Malik Monk, Kevin Huerter, like obviously that's a priority. So I wouldn't expect it all too much. Trying it here and there, I understand why that could be a scenario. I don't love it though.
I think the only way that it really works is if Sabonis is shooting the 3. Now, but I could be way off base because, I guess the other way that it could work is if De'Aaron Fox is improved as a 3-point shooter. If he can shoot, say, I don't know, 37% like he did a couple of years ago from 3, and you still have Harrison Barnes launching and hitting, and you have Kevin Huerter hitting shots, then maybe you can get to spacing. And the one thing, I guess the other thing I'll point out is that Mike Brown is coming from a situation in Golden State where they started Draymond Green and Kevon Looney together for huge portions of the season. They backed off a little bit during the playoffs, but I think Draymond played like 44 games and 42 of them were starts. Those 42 starts were alongside Looney. And so I could see how they could go, okay, this isn't that far-fetched. The only difference is that the Kings don't have Steph, they don't have Clay, they don't have that, and they don't have Wiggins. They don't have all three of those guys that can do what they can do. So you got to be a little bit apprehensive about running that out there. Plus, I think there's such a solid buzz with Keegan Murray that I think we are going to see a lot of him. And I still think that there's a way that you can steal like 4 minutes a half with Sabonis and Holmes on the floor together. And then Sabonis is going to play plenty of minutes. He's going to play 34 to 36 minutes. And so you can steal that 12 to 14 minutes and add it to the other 8 minutes that you play them together. And next thing you know, Holmes is playing 20 to 22 minutes a game. And that might be okay. I mean, he's a ranging defender. He can defend the perimeter, where Sabonis, he's a better perimeter defender than Sabonis. He's a better shot blocker than Sabonis. He is the shot blocker that you need. But the fact that neither one of them are knockdown 3-point shooters, it just makes it really difficult in modern NBA.
Well, and like you said, like neither is Draymond or Looney. And much like Draymond, like if the ball's going to move through Sabonis, you could definitely envision it. You can see it working in theory. And I think, to your point, Brenden, like I really feel like you can see that early in a starting rotation. Sabonis is off the floor 4 or 5 minutes in. Holmes stays, checks it, like however that looks. And then when Richaun comes back out, it's Sabonis that comes back in, plays another bulk minutes without Richaun. Like the majority of the time they'll be on the floor individually, but you start the game with both of them on the floor. Has a little bit of a different look than what the majority of the game will kind of feature going forward. So, you see a lot of guys. There's been players who come in as strictly starters, and then you don't see them again until the third quarter. Where you're starting the third quarter and they're starting again. I'm trying to remember the team. I made reference of one. I think it was a rookie. There was a rookie like 2 years ago who would do this, and all he would do was play the first 6 minutes, and then you wouldn't see him again until the start of the third quarter. He'd play the first 6 minutes again, and the point was to get him to average 12 to 15 minutes per game by the end of the season. And that was a solid, good team bringing their rookie along and trying to play them with their starting people. That's not the thought process here, but it's just another one of those ways of trying to put your best foot forward. And I think in this circumstance, it's trying to keep your rotational centers to where even if you start with both of them, the object is to have one of them at all times.
Yeah, I talked about this, I bring this up all the time. I don't know, like I have for years. This always reminds me of like the Michael Keaton Batman. It's the first Batman where like if you wear they poison the cosmetic stuff, and like if you put the deodorant on
You'll
and
die.
use a shampoo, then you die. If you use the blush and like something else, you die, right? So
there's a point here, yeah.
There is a point. There's a point. And
watch Batman 89.
I'm kind of looking at this team and I'm thinking, I want to see De'Aaron Fox and Keegan Murray together on the court all the time. I want to see Davion Mitchell and Richaun Holmes, because I think they complement each other. And then I feel like if you have the wrong mix, if you go out there with 3 non-shooters, in Fox, Sabonis, and Holmes, you're gonna die. Like, the spacing will be bad, and you're not gonna have a chance, and it's gonna be like it's gonna be like Batman all over again. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of where I look at this. Like,
the new death lineup.
Yeah, because I think with Harrison Barnes and with Herter and with Monk, you can kind of play those guys with anybody, right? Because that's kind of their skill set. Even Keegan Murray, I think you can play with anybody. But I think with Fox and Sabonis and Holmes, that might not be the case. They can't play with anybody. There are specific groups that will work better. Do you get what I'm saying, Brendan? Or am I just like, you don't even know who Jack Nicholson is, do you?
I know who Jack Nicholson is. He's courtside at all the Laker games.
Used to be. A while.
No, I'm with you. I think that as long as there's 3 shooters out there, or there's not 3 players that opposing defenses could care less if they're getting up decent looks from 3. And Sabonis is that right now. Holmes is that right now. And Fox was that last year. I think he's like shown moments where teams will give him a little bit more respect, at least like off the catch from 3. But obviously that's still the preferred shot the defenses are going to want to give up. Like, in my mind, Keegan is such a good complementary piece alongside Fox and Sabonis, and I think HB is as well, and I think Herter. Like, to me, that lineup just makes so much sense and should be something that like you can implement, and you're just running everything through Fox and Sabonis, and all those other guys are decent decision makers who are going to adequately like space the floor. So I think that the issue you run into is when you have 3 non-shooters out there, and then also like Davion kind of falls into that right now. Was it 32% from deep last year? Like, until I think he proves it a little bit more from range, even having Davion out there with Sabonis and Richaun Holmes makes for tough lineups. Like, Chimezie Metu can't be part of any of those lineups. Okpala can't be part of lineups that have Sabonis and Richaun Holmes. Like, I think that if you have, can you get away with a Malik Monk, Kevin Herter, Keegan Murray, Richaun Holmes, Domantas Sabonis? Like, maybe. Do you have enough playmaking there? Because I think that's the type of complementary shooting that you need to run, like, ideally run a Fox and Sabonis lineup.
Yeah, but and again, your starting 5 does not need to be your bulk minute rotation. And again, like that's kind of, I think, what the whole theory there is, which is you start off with a lineup where it's tough for the opposition to react to you. You know what I mean? Like, and then you take it from there. Like, we already know Sabonis checks out early in the first quarter, right? That's what we've seen a lot in his time in Sacramento. He checks out early, 4 minutes in, 4 or 5 minutes in. However
Sometimes
that looks.
Yeah, a lot of times it's like at the 6 minute, and I could see that. I could see Sabonis going to 6, coming in and then swapping out for Richaun Holmes, and then like 2 minutes left in the quarter, they switch Davion in for De'Aaron, and then you might see that might be where the last 2 minutes of the first quarter, the first 2 minutes of the second quarter, where you start to see overlap of Richaun Holmes and Sabonis. And then you come back out into the second, and you start making more adjustments.
Well, and think of it this way too. We saw a lot of it last year. I mean, Richaun Holmes couldn't keep his ass out of foul trouble. Like, the guy would foul all the time. Having someone with like Sabonis on the floor might help that a little bit, where he's not having to, be the primary focal big man right there, and maybe that keeps him out of foul trouble and saves him a little bit more. I don't know. Maybe there's some analytic or some statistic to back that up. I'm not so sure, but at any rate, I think these are the conversations they're going to have. But it's to me, it's a bit of a moot point, because you're not there yet. Your roster's not
July 19th. You're going to tell us again.
July 19th.
It's July 19th.
It's July 20th, right on the dot. How about that?
Oh, it's July 20th.
There we go.
Yeah, and I'll just tell, if you are watching on YouTube, sorry we didn't go live tonight. We were like kind of throwing this thing together, trying to figure it out. It really does come to like, there's just too many things going on with me doing radio, and then Sean having stuff all day, and Brennan being a working man himself, and so it's a little chaotic.
Question for you guys.
Yeah, let's hear
it. On the home situation, do you think that this is a scenario that is being talked about just because this is the state of the roster and Holmes is a solid player, or do you think that it's something that could genuinely be looked at as like, no, I think this is a good thing that these two guys could work together?
Showcase.
Showcase. What's wrong with you?
No.
Great question, Brenden, and thank you for asking. No, I think I think what it comes down to is legitimately like, yeah, you may have had discussions about moving on from Richaun, but there's a world that exists where he's he's here, and how do you maximize his ability and his talents with this team? And I think you kind of have to have a look at what it looks like when you have Sabonis on the floor as well, and I think they're going to be aggressive in these next month or so before training camp gets underway, and you just kind of, well, I guess 2 months, you just kind of have to know what you have, and these are things to maybe experiment a little bit with preseason. You've got to realize that even though Keegan Murray looks like he belongs and looks like he's going to be the most NBA ready, that there's a world that exists where maybe he's not ready. I mean, again, summer league is not the NBA. College is not the NBA. And I know Brennan's about to scream at me, telling me he won the freaking MVP award.
Did he not win an MVP?
MVP.
Wait till they bring over the overseas MVP. They have 3 different MVPs actually here.
How many? This is another way to look at summer league. How many NBA players do you think he went up against over his course of 7 games during
like 5
California?
No,
one of them
there were more than that.
One of them you would probably say was Paolo Banchero, yeah.
Yeah.
And
sure.
that didn't go all that well for the majority of that game. Right?
By the end of the game, he's the best player on the floor.
By the end of the game, he certainly had looked like a different player. But for about 2.5 quarters, he looked like, oh man,
he was shaky.
This is your first time. Yeah, this is your first time going. And again, he'd never. It wasn't just Paolo. Like he was fantastic against big kid from Thunder. Good God, it's
Poco.
so late.
Or I'm sorry, Chet.
Chet, yeah, it's late for everyone. He looked fantastic against Chet Holmgren, but Chet was also playing without Josh Giddey for the first time in his summer league experience. So they were using Chet Holmgren more as a kind of a playmaker as well. And I felt like that was the game he came out firing. But the common thread was there is that he didn't have experience against either one of them, and which I found to be quite interesting. Like I figured somewhere along AAU, whatever level of basketball you want to chalk it up to, I would have figured their paths would have crossed at some point, and it just hadn't for either one of them, for Banchero or Holmgren. So yeah, man, like I just, you kind of look at the amount of NBA players that were in summer league and how many that you can circle them and say they're NBA player legit. And again, I'm not trying to douse water all over the flames of how great Keegan Murray can be.
MVP chance.
I just want to. It's just cautious optimism, There's a world that exists where what if he comes out and he just wets the bed and he's just not ready. I think he will be. Don't get me wrong, but you just have to be prepared to rely on your vets. It's a long season, 82 games, and inevitably they hit the wall and they don't go through. They don't look the same. Even Davion talked about it, and he's a guy that you can't keep off the floor at all. Look at James trying to hide his yawn right there. Did you see that?
I was yawning.
He was incredibly bored by what I was having to say.
No, it's just that we're getting into the wee hours.
Yeah.
Okay, let's. The Kings made. You talk about a long season. The Kings made a couple of additions. We're not really sure what these additions mean. We do officially now know that Sasha is not coming over. Sean, you were the one that broke that. And then the Kings added KZ Apala, who is at least intriguing. And then what is Chima
Monecki?
Yeah. What do you know about Monecki? Because he's a UC Davis guy. I went to Davis, but I never watched Davis basketball. It's my bad.
Yeah, he's fun, man. Like he's instantly the best player they've probably ever had. And Jim Les, former King, is his head coach, and he helped lead them to an NCAA men's appearance. He was a player of the year in the Big West, and just a lot of fun, man. Like he's a guy with Australian roots and plays for a Nigerian basketball team, and where he got to learn Mike Brown, but more than anything, that team with Davis, you got to see a lot on display there. Like not only just his athleticism, his scoring ability, but physicality and really the way he kind of defends. And then it just really blossomed from there. Some of the international stops that he's had in France and Spain and more recently in Europe, where he was able to win that MVP award for Basketball Champions League, which I wasn't all that familiar with. But
yeah, I didn't even look it up. I don't know what Basketball Champions League is.
Yeah, I mean,
important thing is the Kings have 2 MVPs they're adding to this roster.
Yes, there we are.
They could have had 3. They could have had 3 MVPs.
Drop the ball.
He'll be he and Richaun Holmes, if Richaun is still on the team, will both be wearing goggles. But no, just a really cool kid, fun to talk to, very, very bright, very intelligent, and his basketball has come a long way. I never would have thought that for as much as I liked covering him and thought that, boy, I could see him being in the G League or playing in Summer League. He's never played in Summer League, never played in the G League, and he's really come from nothing. It's a little it's a little similar to Gabe Vincent, because that's another guy who I covered his basketball journey. It's unorthodox, and I love, if you haven't seen his T-shirt, I love the T-shirt. He wore it even last year, which was nobody's perfect, or I'm nobody and nobody's perfect. And it's just a great kind of moniker to have as all these people that bet against you and you're just having to overcome so many odds. Like, you never hear of NBA players coming from Davis or Sac State for that matter. So this is a first, and I think it's great to have that Mike Brown's going to have some familiarity, at least with the Nigerian national team that he had. Chima didn't make the Olympic team, but he was part of the team that took down USA and then was cut right before the final roster trimming before they went to Tokyo. And they were based in Oakland, and it was always a lot of fun to see how many people on that Nigerian basketball roster had so many ties to our region, one way or the other. So yeah, KZ Okpala was a part of it. You got Chimezi Metu, who was a part of it. I mentioned Gabe Vincent as well. So it's going to be fun. And I think bringing a guy like Chima Moneke on here, who is familiar with a system that, granted, is international play, it's different than the NBA, but you have a familiarity, and it will help push maybe some of the incumbents that come in here and think, well, I've got a nice contract, I can coast. No, man, you're going to bring in some guys that are going to try to take what's theirs or take what's yours and take it for themselves and try to seize an opportunity. So I think it will push a lot of the roster players that are already on this team that are the incumbents and arriving at training camp.
Yeah, Brenden, I want to bring that to you. I mean, if we look at Mike Brown, he just keeps bringing in people that are associated with the Nigerian national team. And that's not a bad thing. Like, Jordi Fernandez came from, he worked with him there, Luke Locks, like you're getting Chimezi and KZ and Chima. Like, it seems like it's kind of a cool thing that even your guys who may not make the team, or who like 13, 14, 15 on your bench, they at least know the lingo. They know what Mike Brown is about. They have familiarity with the system, with the terminology, with the coaching staff. Like, what do you think of that sort of tie that binds this group together?
Yeah, it's intriguing for sure. I think of, when I look at Moneke and Okpala, like two guys that are impressive on the defensive end. I think that they give a lot of effort and they have good length and athleticism, and I think that that's something that, like Sean kind of pointed out, I think maybe threat's the wrong word, but for lack of a better word, like the threat of that guy behind you being, if you're not busting your butt on defense, then we're going to look towards the next guy because I know that he will, could have other guys step up. And it's also intriguing to me because it makes me feel like there's a sense of trust between the front office and coaching staff. Like, in my mind, a lot of the previous research and information that the front office has on Moneke and Okpala comes from Mike Brown, Jordy Fernandez, Luke Laux, and the fact that these guys end up coming into Sacramento's system, in my mind, just means that there is a good connection there between the front office and the coaching staff that I don't know that I had seen as obviously there in years prior with Monty McNair and Wes Wilcox and all that. So I think it's definitely intriguing. I don't know how much I'm expecting an on-court difference from Monecki or Okpala or anything like that, but it's definitely intriguing and, something that you can look at and say, I don't know that this would have been the case if Sacramento would have gone with one of their other coaching options. So it makes you feel a little bit better in that regard as well.
Well, and I want to point this out too. Chima didn't just come out of nowhere in the sense, well, it was Davis at his nowhere, but he also had Utah and Minnesota, and I actually thought Utah was going to land him. So for the Kings to be the ones that walked away with him, I didn't think that was going to be the case. I actually thought Utah or Minnesota might get his services. So for him to land in Sacramento after learning that there were 3 teams that were really kind of after him. And I think there was a 4th one as well, but those were the 2 that I thought had heard that were going to be maybe a little bit more hotter on him. When he landed in Sacramento, I was a little bit surprised.
Yeah, and I think that there's value in this, right? If you're looking at like last year's roster at the beginning of the year, and you've got Jemias Ramsey and you've got Robert Woodard, and you're sitting there trying to teach those guys at the same time you're trying to work with lingo, and you're kind of dragging those guys along for the ride while the real focus is putting in an offense and defensive sets. That's just different this year because a lot of these guys, number one, they're veteran players. You got a lot of veterans on this team, but also the young guys that you do have, they do already know the lingo. They already know what's happening. They know what's expected of them. And I think that's a good thing. Like, would I have liked to have seen a guy like Jaden Hardy on this team? Sure. I think that that's something that having 1 or 2 young, like uber talented guys that you're trying to bring up and, is going to spend most of the season at the G League level, but, has talent and potential to be something great down the road. I still would have liked to have seen that, but now I kind of understand. And we don't know yet, like what these contracts are, if they're true, like Exhibit 10 contracts that we see for both Chima and KZ. But they are like, there's partial guarantees. They're going to have some money coming to them. And whether they're in Sacramento or they end up in Stockton as part of something, it does feel like they probably will be part of the Kings system. And for me, Akpala is the guy who really is intriguing. He's, basically been raised in the Miami Heat system. He is basically a clone physically of Mo Harkless. I think he measured in like 6'7.25" at the combine a couple of years ago. And then he's one of the smartest players I've ever seen because he wore like 2.5-inch heels to the combine. So he measured in at almost 6'10" because he wore like super thick shoes. Good for him. That's a smart move. He's the anti-Hassan Whiteside who wore flip-flops. Good for Hassan.
But Hassan's a natural 7 foot. Like at that point, what does it matter?
He measured in at 6'11.75" because he wore flip-flops, Sean. That's why he's Hassan Whiteside.
Well, they don't play basketball in flip-flops, James.
I understand that. They also don't play it in 2.5-inch thick like shoes. Anyway, like he's got a 7'2" wingspan, tremendous athleticism, and a guy
which means he can give you one hell of a hug.
Yeah, and he can tie your shoes from across the room. I got you. Your shoelace is untied. But just because he's coming from Miami, the Kings traded for Chris Silva not too long ago from Miami, and that exactly. Oof.
Forgot about that one.
Yes.
It made me realize why Miami got rid of him.
Yeah, but my point is, like, when you now realize that Miami isn't perfect. They don't, like, every single one of the players that come through their system isn't, like, destined for greatness, which is what you started to think, because it seems like they just churn out players from the 25th pick and back, and second-round picks, undrafted players. They find diamonds in the rough all over the place, but on occasion they make mistakes. I think Akpala at least he has the dimensions of the player that you want. Whether he can shoot the three well enough to stay on the court and stuff like that, I think he'll be good defensively. But what can he do? What can he bring to the table? And I'm at least intrigued by him.
I think he's like the young upside swing on the roster that they didn't have. I don't think that relying on him is the best way to go about this season, and I would guess that wouldn't be the case, even if it was just the current roster. Like, you'd see more small ball in my mind. Like, you'd see more HB and Keegan out there at the same time, or maybe more of TD or Kevin Huerter playing the three rather than Okpala just being the backup three that's getting 15 minutes every single night. I don't think that that's what you expect from him, but I think there's an argument that he's maybe the second best point of attack defender on the roster. He's really versatile in that aspect. And I think there's moments here and there where if you're having troubles guarding somebody on ball, that you could look in his direction. There's situational moments where I think that he can get NBA minutes, and in the meanwhile, if a 3-point shot does come around, then he's a really there is a consistent role for him in the NBA. So I think having an upside swing, especially at his size and length, I think is nice to have on the roster, because I don't know who I would have said that was that guy before.
And just 23 years old.
He's young. I mean, he's basically getting the small forward version of Keon Ellis, except for he's got more NBA experience. Whether he can hit the three or not is still a big question, but it kind of feels like that same thing. Long, athletic.
Let's calm down.
Yeah, were you okay that Keegan Murray won the Summer League MVP and it wasn't Keon Ellis?
Well, Keon should have been at least on second team all Summer League, and I'm still talking to people about it. There was a second. I don't even know what the right terminology is.
He should have been on the second team.
Yeah, it's BS. I'm working on it.
He's working on that and the tattoo. Okay, let's get to the business of basketball. This is Sean's favorite segment. Unlike Tuesday Overreactions, which, of course, MVP chance. This is kind of like one of those interesting moments where you're looking at the Kings that are in this weird spot, and I think that if you look at that, you kind of circle them, and they're kind of with the Trailblazers, with the Lakers, with New Orleans. There's this I don't know. Minnesota's probably still in there, even though they don't want to be part of that. But there's this group. Yeah, there's this group of teams that aren't really that good. They're not horrible. They're
not trying to be good either. Is that kind of what you're also getting at? Where some of these teams are not trying to be good either?
Actually, I would say that these are the groups of teams that are going to try to be a little bit better this year. And then there's a huge group of teams that are going to be horrible and want to be horrible, because this is a phenomenal draft. And you got teams like San Antonio, like Orlando, like
Utah.
Utah now has dropped into that conversation. But there are a lot more than that. I mean, there are a lot of teams that could fall into the chase for the number one pick in the draft, the number two pick in the draft. There are franchise-changing players. How much do you think that opens a door for the Kings to be a team that not just playing, but maybe even has a shot at a playoff spot? Because it's not just that those teams are dropping out of contention. It's that on a Tuesday night, if you're playing the Detroit Pistons and James Edwards III is talking trash about your city, that team is going to lay down and get run over by the Kings, because they don't want to win. They want the draft pick. And so I think that there are enough teams that are looking to be bad. The Kings for years struggled beating San Antonio. That should be 3 wins. San Antonio is not good. How many times have we seen the Sacramento Kings lose to the Utah Jazz? I mean, going to Utah is an instant loss. Well, maybe it's not this year. Do you think that opens a door for the Kings to push for 40 wins, push for 41 wins, just because there is that mechanism where teams are not trying to win? More teams, even from the beginning of the season, as opposed to just collapsing at the end. I think we're seeing teams lining up right now for draft position.
Yeah, and I caution people because even the own team, like there's players on this team that go into games thinking that they should win, and oftentimes those are the ones that bite them in the ass. Like, I just hope they don't have that mentality and they don't take anything for granted, because I think there's, like you said, James, we can see it. We can see that there's teams that are not going to try to be competitive this year, but even some of those teams that you end up thinking won't be competitive end up being kind of competitive. Like, it's still Greg Popovich who's going to be coaching that team, and even if that Spurs team isn't the most talented, they're going to play hard and they're going to bring it. So while the goal is for that team especially to try to effectively tank and not be competitive this year, and try to maybe improve a draft position or two, I think they should be very cautious, because when you start feeling that way and feeling yourself and thinking, oh, it's just going to come to us, we're going to be okay, they can't, because by virtue of them not being in the playoffs for 16 years, they should not think that way at all. I do realistically think, yes, there is some doors that have opened up that might have been closed, but there's a lot of question marks too. Like, what do you expect from the Lakers, who are essentially at this point right now running it back? What do you expect for Portland, who last year tried to tank, got rid of CJ, Dame didn't play, now Dame's back. I've got people telling me that like Dame's this forgotten man and is no longer this top 15 talent, and I'm like, you're crazy. Like, you're crazy to me. Like, I just don't see that.
And they got Jeremy Grant. They picked
Right.
up Nasir Little's back.
I mean,
I thought
Nurkic is going to be healthy again.
Hart was
Yeah.
a good pickup. I'm not like Shaden Sharp. I'm not concerned with, but
No.
Simons is back.
Simons has that progression. He got
Yeah, they got
paid.
talent.
I mean, this.
Yeah.
I think to me, it's like, what do you expect from Chauncey Billups? Do we think he can coach? I think he showed some nice moments, but who knows there? Denver's obviously going to be really, really good. Utah is definitely not. I think Utah's going to fall out, especially with not having Quinn Snyder there. I think you're going to have a first-year head coach, and it's going to look a little weird. What are they going to do with Donovan? I think the Clippers are going to be pretty good.
But
the
I
Warriors
think
are going to be the Warriors.
the Pelicans are like a coin flip. You have no idea if they're going to be good or not. Like,
well, and how much of that just surrounds Zion? Like, you just don't know what to expect. Like, is this going to be Zion? Okay, they're going to put him on a shelf. Don't play him till December. Make sure the foot's completely great.
And he hasn't played in so long that and he hasn't ever got to a point where he's part of the flow of anything. And so you don't even really know what you have. And will he upset like the delicate balance that they had during the final couple of weeks of the season where they played really well? Yeah.
And OKC shouldn't be good. Houston probably shouldn't be good either.
No,
so
they should be bad.
Minnesota's going to be fantastic. I think they're going to be fine. A bona fide playoff team.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't think so?
Well, I don't know. I don't love Karl Anthony Towns and Gobert together. Like, I don't know that makes any sense. And you gutted your depth, all of your depth to do it, and your leader. The only other time Minnesota's made the playoffs was with a personality, not a player, but a personality like Pat Bev and Jimmy Butler. And once again, they traded the personality. So, I mean, that does actually mean something to a franchise that, wavers on inconsistency and everything else. I think Charlotte is in a position where, like, what the hell is going to happen in Charlotte? I mean, really?
I mean, especially with what happened with Miles Bridges right now. Like,
yeah, I mean, I don't.
3 felonies. Talking domestic violence and child abuse. Like, how do you put that aside? I don't know if
he'll ever play again in the league.
Oh, I think he will, but
I don't know. Okay, so and like that was one of the topics, and sorry, we've just kind of like Brendan's just quietly sitting there, but like the Miles Bridges thing in the state of California, which is where this situation happened, where he allegedly beat on his, I don't know if it's his wife or his girlfriend.
It's his girlfriend, but baby mama, if that makes sense. Like,
but like I see it reported somewhere that it's his wife, and someplace where it's his girlfriend. But here's the problem that he has. Like, besides the fact that he did something horrific, and I mean, broke her nose, bruised ribs, like choked her, like damaged her ear. Like, there's all kinds of evidence. But in the state of California, we learned this when we went through the Darren Collison thing. If someone makes a statement to the police, someone makes a statement in general, like what she did, she went straight to Instagram and put on a huge like statement about what had happened, and then on top of that, the video of the son talking and explaining what he witnessed. Even if she says, "Hey, I don't want to be part of that," that will be read into the official court record as her statement. If she decide she doesn't want to testify, California doesn't play that game. They don't play the intimidation or the somebody changed their mind after getting beat senseless and then doesn't want the person to get in trouble. Once it's said, that is a statement that is read in. And there's a possibility he somehow pleads that down to a misdemeanor. But 3 felonies? I don't know. And 3 felonies is jail time. And either way, it's a bad one. We're watching, look at Man U is dealing with Mason Greenwood. He's not there. What do you do? They don't even seem to know what to do with that guy. He's out on bail still, but, he's, when it comes to Miles Bridges, he's on a $130,000 bail. And that bail probably just went up. This is no joke. This is crazy time. So I don't know. But my point is that Charlotte could take a huge step back without him. And so there are a lot of teams that I think, we're in this weird situation where if the Porzingis thing doesn't work out in Washington, are we going to see those guys shut it down again like they always seem to do? So I think that there's going to be a lot more teams that are looking at this draft and going, we're too far away to not take that gamble. And I think the Kings probably should be in that, and they're not going to be.
Oh, they're not going to be.
No, they're not going to be. They're going for it. So, I don't know. Brenden, what do you think? Because we've kind of just put you on this. I just muted you and just put you to the side.
You're fine. Somebody pointed this out in the comments last time that apparently I don't talk enough, and I've never even noticed it. So I don't know what's going on.
Nobody puts Brenden in the corner.
Yeah. I can't wait for him to just go, "Hey, shut up. It's my turn."
Nobody puts Brenden in the corner.
I think that OKC, Houston, Utah, and San Antonio are the 4 teams that, in my mind, I would expect they should be worse than the Kings. And after those 4, you're still sitting at 11. And in my mind, one of those 4 could be better than the Kings. OKC, if they actually decide to put all their players out there, can roster a pretty solid team at this point. If they decide to try this season, but you never know. One of those teams could do better than expected, and just one of those teams above Sacramento that you would comfortably place above them will probably drop lower. So I think that there is going to be a lot of reliance on taking advantage of the Eastern Conference and when you play them, because the West is really loaded, and I think that there's maybe 7 different teams in the East compared to the 4 in the West that Sacramento should comfortably be favored against. So I think that making sure that you're winning the games against the right teams in the Eastern Conference is going to really matter. And obviously just winning the games that you're quote unquote supposed to. I think that you never know on a given night in the NBA, but there's going to be nights where I think they comfortably should be favored, and just taking care of business on those nights. Like Sean said, not going into it just expecting to get a win, but going into it kind of ready for the battle that is that game and taking care of business as need be as kind of the more talented roster. Just losing some of these games that they're supposed to win, there's a very thin margin of error in my mind throughout this season. So got to kind of make sure to capitalize on those ones where they are the clear favorite.
Yeah, I saw Vegas has them at 32.5 wins. Is
ridiculous. No, too low.
Sean?
32? They won 30 last year.
Bro.
32.5.
I just...
I'm going to tell Sean and I have covered this team so long. 12 years.
The audacity that you have to question and as if you've never seen this team fall short before. Just see it first, right?
2 more wins than last year. That's not how betting works, Sean. You have to do it in advance.
In 12 years, they've broke 32.5 wins 2 times. 33 with George Karl.
He's an MVP, guys. He's an MVP.
39. 39 under Dave Yeager.
They've got the reigning MVPs. They've got Davion Mitchell and Keegan Murray, Summer League MVPs.
And they can't win 33 games?
Look, no, they can't. They certainly are capable of it. But there's so much that goes into a season, man. Like injuries and trades can still happen. And like, look, what if Domantas Sabonis goes and falls down some steps? Like, I'm not trying to put that juju out there, but
Slips
I'm
on
just
a banana
remembering.
pill.
I'm just remembering. I know it's not funny. Like I'm remembering DeMarcus Cousins when he comes back from his injury and he's playing a pickup game, and all of a sudden it goes kaput again, and he's looking at another long extended absence. Now, granted, he was on the Warriors, so they could stomach. They were already a great team, but dude, like, just there's so much. I need to see it. I really do. I think it's certainly capable. This team is very much capable of doing a lot of those things. I think they're capable of winning 40 wins, but you have a brand. Again, I said this when Luke Walton got to the team. You have to remember, first year head coaches.
Yep.
There's a feeling out process there. There's some wonkiness to it. Hopefully you don't have that. Hopefully you don't. I mean, Mike Brown. Now he doesn't have a Kobe or a LeBron, so we obviously have to say that. But he's known for getting a lot of regular season wins as a result of having players like that. There's just, I just got to see it, man. I just don't want people to go in there and all of a sudden like get pissed at us for saying that they should have done something that they shouldn't. And it's like, well, you fool! Like they've missed the playoffs 16 straight years, which means not only did you miss the playoffs, look at it another way. You've been in the worst half of the league for 16 straight years, and so for me to go in there and say this team is going to do anything, 31 wins, again, it's arbitrary. Because whether it's 31 or 38, the reality is you're probably not making the playoffs, right? Postseason play-in tournament, maybe. Yeah, and again, play-in tournament is different. You got to treat that differently. It's not making the playoffs. But I don't know, man. Like they've gotten a little bit better defensively, maybe, but they still aren't good defensively. If we're being honest, right? Like I don't think any one of us are saying, like, if they're the worst team in the league defensively, how many teams did they leapfrog with these additions? Maybe 2, 3.
Yeah, I think they're like 23rd ranked defense type thing.
Bullshit. No chance. Right now, I think what they've made themselves
add a
is
single defensive player.
They've got guys who are capable of playing a team defense concept, and again, you like some things you've seen from Keegan Murray, but we watched Paolo Banchero walk right by him several times. Even Chet went right by him several times, and that was in summer league. What's going to happen when he's playing with NBA players? And again, I'm not trying to bash Keegan Murray. I'm just saying the things you expect from Keegan Murray based off summer league and college, going into the NBA could be vastly different. And I think he's going to be fine. I think this team's immensely more talented and immensely more interesting on the offensive end. Defensively, I just don't think they've made a lot of strides in the right areas, if that makes sense. Now, hopefully, you're expecting something different from De'Aaron Fox, and he's shown to be a capable defender, but can he stay that way? Sabonis, not a great defender. What do we have with Richaun Holmes? Harrison Barnes is not a great defender. In fact, we've documented how bad that's been at times. So, yeah, who'd they get better? Again,
you got $1,000 right now.
Yes, thank you, James. Make him commit, because he spends an hour and a half twice a week, never committing to any take.
Me?
$1,000 right now. If you had $1,000 and you had to make the bet and take the over or the under, so either 33 or 31 wins, which do you take?
I have to pick 33 or 31. Those are my options. I can't do like an over under of 31 and a half.
Well, no, I mean the over under the mark is 32 and a half. It's 32 and a half.
32 and a half.
Yeah, so you either are take the over
gun to my head.
Gun to your head. They're either a 32 win team or less, or they're a 33 win team or more.
I'll take the over.
I'll take the over.
You're crazy.
He just dropped his pen. He dropped his pen. Whatever he did, I made my answer. He just dropped it. Oh, okay, that's how shocking it was.
Yeah.
Okay. In
So
that
just
scenario,
to be clear,
yeah.
they should win at least 33
No,
games.
not at all. How dare you? That would be good.
Brendan, you're saying the over, right?
Absolutely. I'm kind of offended you asked. Absolutely.
He hasn't been there before, people. He hasn't
Okay,
been
hold
there
on,
before.
hold on. Brendan,
Yes.
38 wins, over under.
Gun to my head, Sean. I'm going under. That's really close. That's like my number for right around where they're at.
So it's not a playoff team.
Postseason. I think they're a play-in, and then you could win on any given night in a play-in tournament.
But we're talking about what the roster is right now too. So who knows what they look like at the trade deadline? Could they make anything happen in the offseason? First off, can they make any action happen before the trade deadline? If you're trending that way and you're able to make another move, who knows? But yeah, I'm with you.
And I think the defensive progress that you were kind of touching on, a lot of it has to do with just starting from a really freaking low bar. Like, I know they didn't bring in guys that are good defenders, but I think they brought in some players that are average to maybe a little bit below average, and they had bad defenders last year.
I think they have some decent defensive players they brought in. They just don't have them in the right position to play. They're not talented enough to play bulk minutes, if that makes sense.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah, you've got defenders, but Keon Ellis isn't going to play.
He's not playing, and Davion Mitchell's not your starting point guard or two guard. So you've got defensive. It's your people who are your bulk minute.
Yeah,
position players.
It's nice to have defenders, but you have to have defenders who will actually play the game, who will actually.
Can you have those two-way?
Yeah. Right.
Now your team defense concepts, I think that's where it's really going to be intriguing to see what training camp shakes out, because you do have capable defenders. You don't really have stellar defenders in those areas, and can you be solid defensively as a unit? And I think that's where I think speed has to play a factor. Like, Mike Brown talks about, at least in the interview when I talked to him, how he wants to utilize the speed as much as possible, have a pace to them, but also there's going to be moments where they have to slow it down, and you have to use speed as your, like, right now, if the roster is what it is right now, you have to utilize your speed, because outscoring teams right now is how you win. Like, I know that's not the most bold concept in the world, because no shit, Sean, you have to score more than the other team, but outscoring them in a situation where you're just going to run and share the ball and score and be like what they were under Dave Yeager that first year, or was it second year? That's what you're hoping this looks like.
That was third year Dave Yeager.
Third year, excuse me. Yes.
Yeah,
Apologies.
Third year. At first year, he had a veteran team with Cousins and like a veterans. And second year, they dumped everybody and had 5 rookies. And then the third year, they ran and were crazy.
I got to. By the way, I said hello to him for you. He looks great. By the way, very, very happy.
My dude.
It looked like he had life again, and he's really enjoying his time.
Yeah, we talk. We text back and forth quite a bit. Yeah, he's still, like, it's like the cancer changed his palate completely, and like eating food is not easy. He's gone through a lot of pain, but he's doing well. So shout out to Dave Yeager.
Shout out to Dave, Coach Dave.
Yeah, Coach Dave was a trip. He's a fun dude to cover, and I think that would be the other thing, that Mike Brown is going to be a lot of fun to cover.
Oh yeah.
Even if they lose a bunch of games, he's still going to be like a live wire and a lot of fun. Like, I hope that's not what we have to go through, like just a bunch of, another 50-loss season. But I certainly think that, like, he's going to bring the energy each and every night, and he'll be fun to cover one way or another. A lot like Alvin was. Alvin was fun to cover. Okay, let's wrap this thing up. Before we get to final thoughts, I want to give a shout out to our guy Jason Wise, who got married this weekend to Nicole, one of his fellow Kings employees. Jason Wise has been one of the top guys in their digital department for. He started before I did. He started working for the Kings before I started covering the team. So like probably 14, 15 years. Does a lot of good video work. He's been a good dude to be around for a long time. And so congrats to the happy couple. Outside of that, do you guys have any final thoughts?
You know what was kind of cool with him and Nicole getting married in San Francisco? Jason's just a huge, sick Giants fan like myself. And he was at the game the other night when Mike Yastrzemski hit the walk-off grand slam. So how's that for like, hey, we're about to get married and we're at a Giants game and they win in this dramatic fashion. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. Brenden, do you have any final thoughts? What do you got?
The little docu-series, I guess, going on, the behind-the-scenes thing that the Kings are doing, The Run, which is a little bit of a ballsy name, but I like it. And
why did you say that?
Because they're acting like this year is the run to the playoffs. In my mind, is what that means. You know,
they should call it the walk.
Yeah,
the swift
stroll.
The
stroll.
I could clearly see by the end of the season someone adding an S to the end of that that title. The runs.
Yeah. That's terrible.
I mean, it is what it is.
Good work.
It's very well done.
Yeah. I'll tell a quick story before we head off. The Kings, you remember they had the video series Inside the Kingdom? Sean remembers this. I actually, with a producer years ago, pitched an entire show to them called Inside the Kingdom, an entire presentation that we gave to the basketball, not the basketball side, the business side, where we pitched like almost like a Hard Knocks, but like following the Kings on a daily basis, doing monthly shorts and all this stuff. And they decided to not do it, and then 3 months later, they stole the idea completely, called it Inside the Kingdom, and ran with it. And used it as the exact same idea. That like
they didn't even change the name.
They didn't even deviate from the game plan or the name. They just took it and.
Who did that? Put them on blast.
Yeah, we need names.
What was his name? Dave Schwartz?
Oh, I remember him.
That's who they pointed at and said it was him who did it. But I didn't pitch it to him. I pitched it to much bigger people in the organization than him. And somehow that found its way into someone else's idea. And they did an entire series that we had pitched. Yeah.
So what did you do? Just go, oh, thanks. Like, gee, golly, what do you do?
What do you do? Like, people steal shows all the time. But yeah, that's entertainment, I guess. That's
them's the breaks.
Them's are the, and at that time too, I didn't have time to mess with it. I wasn't going to sit there and fight them on it. I got an apology. Like, sorry about that.
Hey,
like,
man,
really? Sorry about that. By like a VP came and apologized.
They didn't step on your foot. They just stole your idea and tried to monetize it.
Stole the idea and tried to monetize it, and you know, I don't think they did it. I thought it was good. You know, their idea, like the way that they presented it, was good, but you know, I think ours would have been a little bit better. So
the way this one is done looks a lot like UFC does a tremendous job of doing these week of, you know, especially of a big pay-per-view fight. You've got a 24/7 style docu-series for each day leading up to the fight, and it's tremendous, and it has very much that feel, and I can't wait to see more of them because they've got some really talented people over there.
Yeah, I had a producer from The Amazing Race pitch the idea with me. Like, he had done 13 seasons of The Amazing Race. So, like, we had it was a full-fledged, like, thought-out plan. So
clearly not a good enough idea, James.
By 13 seasons of An Amazing Race, is it still very amazing? Or is it somewhat
I don't know.
mediocre?
Could you imagine? Have you ever watched that with an editor's eye? Because I know you're...
No, sorry to disappoint you. I've actually never seen it.
Okay,
Sorry.
so in every 30 seconds, there's probably 60 cuts. It's
Yeah.
that quick.
Wow.
Boom, 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 boom. Like you would watch it if you with your editor eye because you do video editing, you'd be like, holy cow, that is crazy. Like just the different angles, different cameras, how quick it goes. Yeah,
Amazing, even.
There are cool moments. So it's a good show. It's still around.
Is it?
So yeah, they probably another season coming up soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Should
yeah,
we
they
expect
brought
to
it
see
back.
you on there, James?
I tried
you
out
do
for the
it?
Amazing Race years ago.
What do you do when you try out?
I went and waited in line at like the Jackson Rancheria, and then we actually made it inside and did like I think they videotaped our interview, but it was me and my brother, which that was probably my mistake, just because, yeah, it would have been good TV, like we would have been yelling at each other the whole time, so. Yeah, but it would be a good time. At this point, like, I couldn't do it. With back injuries and everything else, there's no way, but yeah. Anyway, yeah, I would do Survivor, too. Survivor would be a blast.
Oh, hell no. Absolutely not.
And, they actually
James, would you do Naked and Afraid?
No, I can't
mean,
do
that's-
naked. I'm too damn white. No, I just burn,
Pretty
and I'm
much
not gonna
Survivor,
burn
though.
there. Like, I'm not doing naked. Like, there's nowhere to hide, Sean. Like, no.
Go find some big bush leaves or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, no. I would do Survivor though, even though that
I was
was
just trying to make Brendan laugh right there.
Yeah.
That was my whole goal.
yeah. Anyway, yeah, no, I wouldn't do Naked and Afraid, but Survivor, like the gameplay stuff, I would love. Yeah.
Okay, so but Naked and Afraid would be all right minus the nudity. It's basically Survivor, yeah.
Sort of, except for Survivor, I think you actually stay in one place and you build a camp and all that stuff. See, I'd be good at all that, building camps and stuff.
That's
I'd
what
be
you
fine.
do.
Yeah, I would be fine on all that. So yeah, I think it would be a good time. They
No way.
they tried to get Doug to do Survivor at one point, and I think they tried to get him and Jackie to do The Amazing Race, and of course Scott Pollard did
He
Survivor.
did, and he
Yeah.
wasn't thought of very highly. Like they made him look like kind of I don't know. I remember
I've
him
had that
saying
discussion
he'd
with
never
him.
do it again, right?
Well, I think he said that, but I think at the end of the day, he probably, like, if they really came to him, he might consider it. Although not at this point, because he had heart problems afterwards.
He's an absolute nut job. So, by virtue of him wanting to do something like means there's no chance I would ever do it.
Yeah, he.
I don't even like camping, bro. I'm gonna be camping for the next 2 days.
Oh
later
no, I
this
don't like
week.
camping either.
Camping to me is being in a hotel. I just camped for 8 days in Vegas, so now I got to go camp where there's actually bugs and shit. I'm not doing that.
I actually grew up camping all the time, but I don't do it anymore. Anyway, yeah, and Scott was very upset with the way they portrayed him on Survivor. Like he actually came on the pod and talked about Survivor, like because I wanted to like pick his brain about Survivor. Yeah. Anyway, all right. Well, we've sat here and shot the S for a while, but
Business of Basketball Naked and Afraid edition.
yes, yeah, exactly.
Who would be the best Kings member to be on Naked and Afraid if you had to pick two?
This feels like a bait of a question. Like, what are you really asking?
Look
here,
at
Sean?
James is really thinking about
I
it. Though.
think like Davion, because he's just so intense and wouldn't stop working and be like, I got this. Like, all right.
I think I want the Kings players to keep their clothes on and play basketball. Personally.
I'm
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of the Kings Beat podcast. Thanks for joining us. This thing got squirrely because it's almost 1 o'clock in the morning. It'll go up on Wednesday morning. Just so you know, I'll be on all week with Damian Barling on ESPN 1320, doing like 4-hour shifts every day. Sitting here a lot, so we'll try to keep squeezing these in. It's cut back on the writing a little bit for the last couple of days. I also did spend the weekend. I took the weekend off because it was the wife and I's anniversary. Big number 23 years.
Good for you
of
guys.
marriage.
Yeah, congrats.
And he
Yeah.
busted out the fedora, which we talked about on the Deuce and Mo podcast today.
I heard you guys were talking about my fedora on the Deuce and Mo pod. That was okay.
I think your fedora should have like a business card that says press that's like put into like an old school.
Yeah, I can see
hat.
that. And even that pic, that wasn't like I just had that pic on my phone, and I didn't ask for. I didn't say, "Hey, wife, come over here. Let's take a picture." So that was like, I think that was from New Orleans. I'm like, whatever. I'm just gonna put that pic in. Anyway, yeah, I've been married a long time.
Excuse me. Oh, you just killed him.
Yeah.
Well, I can't pull off fedora, so good for you, man.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of the Kings Beat podcast. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back later in the week. We'll figure that one out because we got to work around radio and Sean going camping and Brenden doing whatever Brendan's doing at this point. Molly's there somewhere, I think. So for Fox 40's Sean Cunningham and, of course, Brenden Nunes from the Kings Pulse podcast and the Kings Herald, I'm James Ham, your Kings Insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. See you later this week.